Mhm.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I thank you all for being here. Those who will be attending live and those who will watch it after the fact, I thank you all. Today is 2020's 2022's first TDOR event for the week, and my name is Jennifer Love Williams. And before I go any further, let me introduce one of my panelists to give us some land acknowledgments. Ladies and gentlemen, and great humans, Janis, Stacy.
Good afternoon. The land of which everybody is on in the United States is unceded Native American land within the eastern region of covering Manhattan and Philadelphia, down into Maryland and Delaware, and north into Pennsylvania, is the land of the Lenni Lenape, called Lenapehoking. Lenapehoking. Sorry about that. Lenape people lived in harmony with one another upon this territory for 1,000 years, and it was the wish of the leader of the chief. It was the wish of the chief that all people would live together in peace and harmony. From that day forward, Chief Tamanan wanted all people to live in peace and harmony from that day forward. I want you to all take a moment and understand where you live and acknowledge the people that have been dislodged from their land. And if you're native, I would ask you to raise your hand and say hello, but you're not here. Please acknowledge that people are still alive. The native people are still alive. Thank you.
Jennifer, we can't hear you.
Silly me, I was muted. Sorry. Earlier, I had stated the phrase TDOR. TDOR is an acronym for Trans Day of Remembrance. This was started back in 1999 by a small group back in Austin, Massachusetts. And currently, TDOR is observed in over 188 cities throughout more than 20 countries. With that being said, let me explain to you guys how I came up with the panelists that I have today. I know typically we see women that look like me. And for the event that I was going to be moderating, I wanted to see some panelists up here that can give a different perspective of the trans lived experience than I can. So with that being said, I'm going to bring them up, let them introduce themselves a little bit. First one first is Miss Janis Stacy again. Janis pronouns are she, hers. Oh, keep going on. The next is Jasmina, aka Jay-Z. Jay-Z's pronouns are them, they. And we have Jamil. Jamil's pronouns are he, him. Thank you guys for all being here. We're going to hop right into the questions if that's okay with you guys, and be as passionate as you need to be. I don't mind a little bit of curt, just don't be derogatory, but please express yourself. We can't make the audience feel us if we don't feel ourselves. With that being said, let me get into the first question. Gender dysphoria. When did you start to feel it, if ever? And how did it start? How did you start your journey with understanding self? Let me start with Jamil.
My gender dysphoria started as a kid, being about 5, 6 years old. And my mom would take me to different therapists and stuff like that, trying to figure out what was going on with me, because I didn't get the same monthly cycle as like my sister and stuff like that. So by the time I hit 18, I wanted to transition and stuff like that. and as time went by, and my dysphoria just got worse and worse. And then when I got my hysterectomy, that's when I found out that I was intersex, and so that's when all my dysphoria started.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. What about when did you start your journey of understanding self?
Um, about I say about 15 or 16. And that's when I kept telling my mom that I wanted male clothes, not female clothes and stuff like that. So my journey started as a young age, as a trans kid. So as I grew older, it's just I was doing natural hormones with like food balancing and what produce testosterone, what reduces estrogen. So that's when I started my journey, about 15 or 16 years old.
Okay. Thank you for sharing with us. Um, Let me go next to Janis. Want me to repeat the question?
You asked when we first realized we were trans, and how did that, and when we start realizing that in our lives, something along
Yes.
those lines.
Yes.
Well, I knew I was trans before I was 5. I knew I had to hide it by the time I was 5. So I'd gotten in trouble many times before then. That didn't stop me very much. I kept trying to express my gender all through my childhood. I didn't understand what it was because I was in the 60s and the 70s, and there wasn't a lot of information out there. There was no internet. Libraries didn't carry anything. It was about when I was 14, 15 years old when I found other people that were like me. And that's when I started actually exploring what that meant for me. So it's been a journey since then.
Jay-Z,
would you care to share?
Yeah. So I have to say, as a non-binary person, I remember thinking about it as a teenager and not finding at the time, not finding any language, anything really to explain either who I am or what I feel like, and trying to explain this to people. I don't particularly experience dysphoria on a physical level as much, but it does feel sometimes like continuous switching. So like I have a day when I wake up and I'm like, oh, this all feels wrong. And then I have days when I wake up and I'm like, oh, it feels right. So I have to say that I know people sometimes say they're confused by non-binary folk. And I have to say, sometimes can be confusing to ourselves as well. So.
I thank you for sharing as well. Let me go right into this next question. People often confuse gender identity with preference. What do you want to say to people about this topic to make them better understand not just the difference, but the difference when it comes to you? Let me start with Jay-Z.
Sorry, Jennifer, can you rephrase that question a little? I'm not quite following.
Oftentimes, people, not just cisgender, but LGBTQ people as well, often confuse gender identity with your preference. People naturally assume a lot, and there's very much a difference between the two. So, what are your thoughts on it? Let me say rather that way. What are your thoughts on it, and what do you want to say to people to help them better understand at least you and your thought process of it?
Thank you. So for me, there's a difference between this presentation aspect, like what's on the outside, and then what I internally feel as myself or as a person. So I would say, like, I generally feel as a non-binary person all the time. However, I may have days where I feel like I want to present to the world more femme, or I want to present to the world something that is more masculine. And what I have run into definitely is that when I present this sort of like femme side to the world, there is this questioning, like, oh, you cannot be possibly non-binary if, like, you have a day where you want to match whatever is your assigned gender with your presentation for the day. And so there's this confusion between, as you said, between the what's on the outside, what's being seen, or how it's being presented. And I don't see necessarily the same logic applied to cis people as much. So people don't question somebody's identity if they woke up one day and they decided to whatever, wear one thing or another. So that, to me, is where I see this conflict. And I guess I would tell people, it just take our word for it. So if we tell you we're one thing or another, just take our word, and trust the person who's telling you what they are.
Thank you for sharing. Let's go to Jamil. You want me to repeat the question? You got it.
When you say preference, do you mean like sexual orientation, or preference as like we choose to be transgender?
No, like your sexual orientation.
Okay, so for me, I say that, like, my sexual orientation is pansexual. I don't date nobody on what's in between their leg or how they look. I feel that I'm attracted to how we connect with each other. And that's just that simple for me. I don't see gender, and I don't see feminine or masculinity.
Janis?
Thought I'd unmute before I start talking. All right, so gender identity is about who you are, who I am. So my gender identity, I had a long argument with somebody I know a few months ago, and they didn't realize that I'd had a solid singular gender identity since I was a child. So my gender identity is who I am. How I present outside of that, or what gender I prefer to be with, is something that I choose sexually. I found over time that my gender identity is fixed. My physical sex, has been modified a lot over the years. And as it is with most people, they go through puberty and they go through menopause. There's all sorts of things that are mutable within sex, physical sex itself. I've had to go through a lot of physical changes in order to be comfortable living in my own skin, which I do now. Who I have sex with is a choice. Who I am is just pretty much who I was born as.
I thank you. Thank you a lot for sharing. This next subject is a little more sensitive, and I'm just gonna ask it. The murders and attack on trans people affect us all. How are you affected, and what do you want to share? Let me start with Jay-Z.
So for me, I have to say that a lot of the times I am more concerned for my friends that I think are more targeted than myself. I'm aware that both racially and how I can blend into as a cis person, like sort of I can, and this is not something I want to do, but I can not draw attention to myself often and avoid that attack. But I do and have experience being with friends and seeing just how much verbal violence and threats can happen. And I often worry for a lot of people in my life when they're out there in the world. Um, I've also had experiences where people were insisting that I tell them my, I guess, assigned sex at birth. And we're starting to get extremely intimidating and violent, almost to like threaten, to like ask. And I was lucky that I was in places where I could just get away and get away from these people who are presenting violence to me. But there is a concern, and I definitely feel like a constant stress around people that I love, that I care about, when if they leave and I don't hear from them and so on. And I think a lot of this violence and a lot of this threat is coming from a place of I don't know, like not understanding, like just general hate in the world. And I just wish it was, I mean, I wish there was a way to reach people and stop this somehow.
Thank you, Jamil.
Um, Kind of a difficult question. As a trans man, a lot of us get overlooked. So, and a lot of the murders for trans men don't get seen as lot. Not comparing to any other trans person, but our trans men get overlooked when they do get murdered. And I worry every day when I go out. I'm a delivery person. I'm on the road about 8 hours a day by myself. You know, and being a person of color, I don't know who I'm gonna run into. So I'm married to a trans woman, so I kiss her like it's my last day here because I don't know if I'm coming back home.
Thank you. Janis.
Thank you very much. We've lost so many people over the years, and some of my friends have been put on the list with names for people who were killed. We lose too many trans people, and it hurts every time we lose one. And there are trans people who get killed that we don't know about, right? These are the ones that we know about. Too many are forced to in other situations where they get killed and misgendered. We shouldn't be being killed. Over my lifetime, I've gotten thousands of death threats for being trans. I've been approached violently a number of times, including stalkers. I just learned to live with it going forward, and I know each day that I go out and meet the world that there's possibly something that's going to happen. But I have to go out and see the world and just address it, just go forward, with a smile on my face and doing the best I can, as though I'm going to come home, even though it's a possibility that anytime, anywhere, I might not be coming home. Myself, I have the privilege of passing when I go out, which a lot of trans people do not, which makes going out a lot easier for me than it does for many along the way. or even myself when I was transitioning. I didn't pass that well. But now I do, and that makes it easier for me. There's a lot of trans people without that privilege that are being hated on and attacked on a daily basis. So it just makes me cry. Back to you, Jennifer.
I want to share, right? Okay, I am 46. And as a Black trans woman, I know that I have lived past the expectancy of Black trans women, right? I've, for several years, at least more than a decade or so, I've understood the purpose of TDOR. And I don't think it always hit me when the names started being read, right? But I don't think I got the gravity of it until maybe like about 2020. Things became so damn toxic and so violent. And I'm not negating the fight for Black lives, but when Black lives, people my own race didn't want to include the LGBT community, let alone the trans community, and so many of us were being murdered left and right. I had just flown to Dallas, and of course, when I'm flying and I'm traveling, they're most likely business trips, so I'm traveling alone. And I'm in Dallas. I don't even know that while I'm in Dallas, the week that I'm there, 3 girls are killed in a 3-day span or 2-day span out of the 6 days that I'm here, that I was there. And then when I got home, and it took me some time to process that, I came down to Philly, and I was eager to see this side of Philly because I've never been to this specific side of Philly. It was a little more urban and not so brotherly lovish with the I Heart Philly stuff all over the place. And I wanted to see the side of Philly. Little did I know that while I'm there, 2 girls are killed in one night, 2 different locations. And so then it started messing with my head because now Philly is close to home. And then the murders started happening in New York, and then one right here in New Jersey where I reside at the damn town that's like 10 minutes from me. It disturbed me. It made, now the fear is settling in, and my family is paying more attention, and they're more cautious, and they're more concerned for me. You have my damn mother who's Aggie, but my mother isn't Aggie. She crossed the trans person in the supermarket, or was it the Dollar Tree? I can't remember which one it was. It was either Harris Teeter's or either the Dollar Tree. Nevertheless, a person was being disrespectful to them, and she saw the person being visibly scared. And the first thing came to her mind was, that could be my child. So she just jumped in as if it was her child, and I thanked her for that. And then she called me, and she just asked me a lot of questions. My aunts and them have like been worked up. They're out places, and they've noticed someone harassing a person, and they immediately call me to check on me to make sure I'm okay. And I keep trying to say to people, I don't want to get scared that way. I don't want to leave my house. But these things are a real thing. Not a few weeks ago, let me go with the first week of October. I came into New York. I've been coming into New York. I've been sneaking into New York since I've been damn 19 years old. I even lived in the Bronx for like 6 months, or 4 months. I lived in Yonkers for 6 months. I'm comfortable within those 5 borough areas. I came into Times Square, and I don't know if this was you want to get me because I'm a trans person, you want to get me because I'm a woman, or you just being not mentally there. a guy appeared and he was in arm distance and he said some nut shit like, I want you. And I was like, ew, I hope he's on the phone. I'm on the phone in my earpiece. I moved, he moved with me, and as I tried to, it became more apparent that I need to get the fuck away from you. I'm not moving fast enough. And he was persistent in getting to me. And the one thing I didn't want to do is ever rely on the police to protect me. But it was a precinct in the Times Square train shaft tunnel, whatever you call it. When you push the police officers to still get to me, that shook me so much. I don't typically travel with feel the need to travel with weaponry. When I was in my 20s, that was different. I was here for it. I want to pop off. You look at me wrong. I don't. I'm more trying to just go and just live my life than to see these nutty things happening and you can't control it. And I don't want to end up like some of my other siblings. I don't want to end up killed by police either. I watched some girls like me go through the BS, not just with people on the street, but with police, with medical care professionals. I'm watching myself, formerly incarcerated, dealing with the disrespect while I was in there. It's just a lot. And I remind myself that no matter how privileged I am, there is people like me, women like me, that's not making it home at night. And it's not by choice. So it starts to fuck with your head. This time of the year truly breaks me down mentally. We got to do better with each other and with self to make sure that we're here for the long haul, all of us. I didn't mean to go off topic, none of that, so I apologize. What does being trans and proper pronouns mean to you? Let me start with Janis. I don't hear you.
Being trans is, I've gone through transition. So I tell people I'm trans just so that we get any kind of problems out of the way up front, and to make sure that I represent my community, right? So people know that they're meeting somebody who's trans. The pronouns that I need are she, her. And when I get those, it's just a validation of who I am, and of the life that I'm living. That's nice to hear. It's great. It's really great to hear. When I hear the wrong pronouns, it becomes sort of a painful moment for me. So, yeah. So that's what I've got. Back to you, Jennifer.
Jamil, let's go with you.
All right. Being transgender is just being your true self. That's, for me, is that simple. Just being your true self. And my pronouns are not my preferred pronouns. They are my pronouns.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it.
Jay-Z.
I think for me, it is part of feeling seen, the correct pronoun use. It is, I know a lot of the times there's a conversation about like, oh, with using the singular they, it becomes like, oh, people are not used to it. People, it feels like it's a constant struggle. It is particularly sad to me when it comes from within queer community. I think with the straight cis community, I think I just at some, it's not that I gave up. I did not give up. I think there are amazing allies out there who are trying their best. But like sometimes, like when it comes to just being on a street, or just going to the store, or like I don't expect people, even if I have like a big sign on my head saying please use they, people will still not use it. But it really is hurtful when people know, and I feel should know better. And I think for me, it's about not feeling seen for who I am. And it's more than just like, oops, I just used the wrong word. It's about like, no, actually, even when you use the right word, you're using it to be polite, not because you see me, because you wouldn't be tripping over it if that's who you see me for real. Anyway, I don't know if that actually makes sense, but that's what it means to, is like, yeah, there's this feeling of like when somebody is genuinely seeing you for who you are, and when they're like just don't want to be rude, which is great. Like I don't think people should be rude, but there's definitely a difference. And I don't know if that answered your question or if I just went on a tangent. But back to you, Jen.
It answered the question. It definitely did. I had learned from a colleague a few years back that pronouns are life-saving, right? I'm a confident person, but I think like reading a will and seeing things say, my daughter, oh, she'll be right there, and my brother to say, like to go put on his social media sites, my sister. She's amazing, or she's awesome, and my niece, my aunt, she, I've always been that. I've always been something amazing to others. But I think that when I hear it in my everyday life, then when there's no makeup, no lashes, no Janet moves, no neck swings, no corsets. It's just being comfortable and cozy, and I'm with my loved ones, and they at least appear to get it. And it's not a nephew/niece, it's just my niece, and it's like, for a confident person, those moments were paramount to me. They made me feel truly inside. And I don't know if them people, like the first times that these things actually just happened, I didn't have to ask. I didn't have to walk away feeling like, motherfucker, in my mind, nothing. It just happened, and it made me feel like everything on the inside. It made me feel a little more invincible for the outside world. And just so you know, FYI, families and friends and cores, to anyone in the trans community, when you, whether you know it or not, you guys respecting pronouns and gender identities go further than you know. Because the outside world, I already knew coming into this, finding my true self, the outside world was going to give me hell. But when my family, that's my bloodline, when they got my back, I can climb mountains. And I don't mean have their back and then tomorrow after Thanksgiving dinner, call them, misgender them. No. have their back, respect their pronouns, respect their chosen names or their legal names, and be their biggest supporter. You don't have to put $1 into it. It's nothing but all heart and respect. Next question. Now, all of us do some form of work when it comes to the community. So I want to know, does your trans identity fuel the work that you do? And if so, how? Let me start with Jamil.
Well, I do several work. So, I mean, I deliver groceries for Walmart. That's what I do on my regular job. You know, society, I pass as a cisgender man. Nobody questions me out. I do get at times, someone will pick up my voice or whatever and will ask me, but until now it haven't affect me in that work for right now. My past jobs, yes, it did affect me. I was discriminated several times in my workplace, and I chose when pandemic came not to deal with that no more. And I said I was gonna work on my own and work on my own time, and so that I don't get discriminated anymore. After getting jobs after jobs and being discriminated for who I was, I got tired of it, and I looked for my own income, working on my own and doing something for me. That's why I created Phoenix, for those who facing hardship because they can't find work and stuff like that, and that was my baby. I've been growing it for like 3 or 4 years now, and I don't want people to go through the same things I went through. If that answers your question.
It definitely does. Do you want to share a little more about Phoenix, the Phoenix
Yes.
the organization?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Phoenix is an organization that's a 501c3 organization. Um, I founded in 2020 after the beginning of pandemic, after I was discriminated at my last job, but not by my supervisor, but my coworkers. I went through a lot of financial hardship. So I created Phoenix for those who are facing discrimination and wants to create their own. And I help them with that. I have one program that helps with that. Create their basic nonprofit business LLC, and we actually pay for the website and to register their business so that they can work on their own and not be discriminated. And we also help with food and hygiene items as well. And of course, we help with the trans men and trans masculine people with binders as well.
Thank you. And for everyone who missed that, at the end of the programming, we will give Jamil and the rest of the cast, well, the rest of the panel, the opportunity to go ahead and make sure that all their orgs are acknowledged. Next, let me go with Janis. You want me to read the question again, or do you have it already?
Read the question again.
The question is, does your trans identity fuel the work that you do? And if so, how?
It's part of who I am. It's always been there. So you can't go to work without bringing the point of view that you have being trans with you. I made some changes in some things, some directions and things over the years that have impacted the trans community. I worked on, I fought to get Alta Vista, the search engine, funded, the development of the search engine funded. So because I had trouble finding anything about transgender people on the internet that wasn't like porn or something. So that's where that came from. But my work's continued on from there, right? I fought to have insurance coverage for trans people. Housing is a big one. With my current work, I work with the Queer March. I work with Indigenous Peoples Day because I'm Native. I'm a member of the Two Spirit Society, and I am helping to search out discrimination within housing everywhere I can, and trying to make sure that trans people are welcome in most housing places. So it impacts my work all over the place, but it always has. It's more overt now than it was before. It's the major difference.
Thank you. Next, Jay-Z. Now, do you have the question, or do you want me to repeat it for you as well?
You can repeat it. I think I remember it, but if you want to repeat it, go ahead.
Does your trans identity fuel the work that you do? And if so, how?
Yeah, thank you. It does. It does in a way that, so I work at many different places, and as I think you can all see from the bottom of my screen, so I work at CLAGS and CUNY. CLAGS is the Center for LGBTQ Studies at the Graduate Center, and we do a lot of work that is promoting I would say, research, the educational part of the LGBTQ experience. We have a lot of events that are highlighting the trans experience and research, fellowships, scholarships, all kinds of things. So in that sense, since I have been there, I have always been advocating to have more trans-related content and have been supported in that. And I also work with a Wow Cafe Theater, which is a women and or trans theater space in New York City. And similarly, since I have been there, which is now many, many, many years, I have always advocated for more trans works to be highlighted, spotlighted on stage, and shared. And yeah, so I would say in my work with all the different organizations, both where I volunteer and where I work in person, it has always been a part of something I do. As an educator, I teach at City College. I have tried my best to create the space where my trans students can have a place where they can talk, they can feel safer. And I'm saying safer because I cannot, as a single person, guarantee 100% safety, but at least I try to create a space where they can come and talk, and have advocated for them, have also been, I would say, mostly lucky that in the spaces that I'm working, at least there is some effort to be supportive of trans and or non-binary folk. And, it's not always quite, it's not always perfect, but there's at least some kind of system where I think especially in the recent years, people have been more supportive. I was recently actually in a meeting where I thought it was ironic because somebody was they were expressing that they didn't understand the pronouns and all that stuff. And I decided to speak up because I felt like a lot of the times people talk about trans people like we're not present in the room. And this person seemed to clearly not assume that like everybody in the space was cis. And so I felt it was important to say like, okay, let's stop. And so I have since then been asked if I would do a workshop for the staff and faculty, who want to learn more. So I think I try to put that, like, even if it's not necessarily what I'm working on in the moment, to have this put it out there when I hear people say things that I think could be harmful, and stop them and talk to them. Yeah.
Thank you. For myself, I honestly thought that it was for me to go stealth as best as possible and make it through each day and and it was for self is how my young mind thought. As long as I was fine, everybody was fine. That's what happens when you live in your own little bubble, but reality hits when that bubble bursts and you realize that you have a duty, you have a job to do, and it's not always about financial gain. It's not always about getting notoriety, but I have a responsibility because there were people that was here before me that made it possible for me to be able to even have the Gender Project. People that made it possible for me to go through customs, go through TSA. Well, back then we didn't have a TSA. To just be comfortable within self. And I'm blessed and I'm thankful and I'm honored. And I know that my work is not done. Currently, my gender project provides welcome home packages to recently released and soon to be released LGBTQ plus people. I don't just service trans, I service the whole LGBTQ spectrum. As long as you are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, I also work with the National Council, who provides the attention and help that women and girls who are formerly incarcerated and incarcerated needs. I will work with any agency that is all for incarceration, because that's a whole different world that it's in a whole different stratosphere itself. And then can you imagine being trans in these situations? Most of us will be put in men's prisons anyway. So that's where my heart is at and my passion is at. But I'm always going to advocate for my sisters and brothers and my trans siblings, period, to be in a safe place, to just go ahead and live. I'm about to go on to a bigger tangent. Let me stop and let me continue on. I hear people say that there's a gay agenda and that there's a trans agenda. What do you guys have to say? I'm going to start with you, Jamil, because you are also a parent.
Can you refer the question like?
Oftentimes, and more in recent times, we hear about the gay agenda, and we hear people say that, oh, we're pushing, the trans community is pushing ourselves on them, that we are pushing a trans agenda. What do you want to say to that?
Well, my son, me and my best friend decided to have a child. Um, Her boyfriend was in prison, and it was came from him. Um, and I've been raising that child with her, and we live in a different state. The child knows me from before I transitioned. And the my son does not misgenders me or anything. You know, he also has from his birth dad a trans auntie as well. So it's not being pushed on him. He asks his questions when he sees us as we transition. He asks his question, and his mom and me, we both explains to him that everybody is different and nobody is the same. So you know being gay and being trans, kids see that from a young age, and they seem to understand a lot more than a lot of the adults
Yeah.
because they ask question, hey mom, why is this or why is that, and my son doesn't judge on nobody. We explains to him and he says, oh, okay, and he moves it on. He doesn't go back and he says, well, he was she, and then no, he doesn't do that. He's like, okay, so it's he, and that's it. So I don't believe that it's being pushed on children. Children sees it. They look at it, even when they go to school, they might be a child that's more feminine than other. And, they're seeing that as young kids in school. and they do ask questions, and some of them does get bullied, and other kids witness that.
Janis?
The trans agenda, huh? No, I don't hear trans agenda much. I hear trans ideology more. So that's being pushed at us. But the trans agenda, here's what I got to say. We've got an agenda. We want to live. We want to work. We want to have our lives, and we want to be happy living our lives. That's our trans agenda. If they've got a problem with that, come see me, right? That's our agenda, is just to get our health care, be able to pay for our own way through life, and to live, not get killed. That's what this whole day, the Trans Day of Remembrance, is about, people getting killed, right? We don't want that to continue happening. That's our agenda. So if they want to say I'm pushing that at them, I'll say, yes, I am, right? We want to live. We want to have those jobs. As far as the trans ideology goes, it's not ideology. It's who we are. As I said earlier, gender is my gender identity has been fixed my whole life. My sex has changed. My physical sex has changed. So that's been mutable, but my gender identity has been immutable. It's just it's what most people keep their entire life, regardless of what happens to the rest of them. Disabled people have a gender identity that's with them. People in terrible accidents have the same gender identity they did before. So the gender identity is fixed, and our our sex, our physical sex, and our sexuality can be whatever it is. If that's a gender ideology, it's not an ideology, it's science. So I don't see where they come up with calling it that, except that they have an agenda of their own. All we want to do is live. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jay-Z.
Thank you. So, yeah, I agree with Janis on this. It's just this kind of nonsense. And it's just, I think a lot of this is just using words to get, to scare people who don't know better. And it's not because it's actually something that is there. Like there's this assumption that there's somehow, I don't even know, there's a global trans council that sits there and decides some kind of agenda that is then put out there. I mean, that's nonsense. I do want to agree with Janis that I personally have an agenda. I have an agenda to fight hate in the world. I have I didn't mention, I don't think we mentioned in the beginning that I'm originally from Bosnia, which was in a civil war. And at that time, when I was there, my agenda was to stand up to any kind of nationalism and ethnic hatred and speak against that. And so I feel like this kind of, I have an agenda that's like anti-hate agenda. I believe that trans children, like any other children, should be protected from this hateful agenda that's out there. That I think, if anything, we can claim that there is hate agenda that's being pushed on trans folk, and trans folk are being used to promote this power grab that's coming from far right. And I do hope that people who are not subscribing to hate can see through it and can, allow themselves to just treat all of us like human beings that we are.
Thank you. When it comes to that topic, like a transgender or any kind of agenda, I don't know who's supposed to be these people showing an agenda. I often see a lot of my urban television programs start to include a not so flashy Black gay men and more passable trans women, played by trans women at that. Trans roles played by trans people. And I'm watching people protest it. And that's where I got the whole gay agenda or the trans agenda from. And I don't understand. When it comes to television and movies, this is supposed to be art imitating life. Or what happened to inclusivity? Inclusivity, we as Black folks, for example, because I'm Black, I can't sit here and scream, I need to see Black people in movies. I need to see Black people on television. But you want me to exclude seeing trans people, positive trans people, positive Black trans people on TV. That is something of importance. It's not for me to include inclusivity. I mean, it's not me pushing inclusivity for me and younger people like me to get to see this, and people that's even older to see ourselves. Because we are here in everyday life. We are very much doctors, lawyers, parents, teachers, children, siblings. We're the McDonald's workers. God dang it, they're the nurse at the school, the nurse at the hospital. We are literally everywhere. We've always been everywhere. So there is no agenda. It's just we're tired of sitting here and being here, being present, being productive, and being overlooked. That's all it is. Nobody's pushing an agenda. We want to see ourselves like everyone else should want to see themselves. This whole world and each city and each state is a whole little rainbow situation. Why can't we want every part of this rainbow should want to see itself here in your television and your music and all of that? That's all it is. Nobody's trying to push an agenda to turn nobody this way, to make no one look this way. As we stated earlier, trans is not a thing somebody can turn you to be. It's not a disease. It's just people. Everyone, this period is human. No matter how you want to put it. Every human deserves respect. Every human deserves to see themselves, and every human deserves to live productively and happy at their own choice of way. In their own choice of way, let me say it like that rather. At this point, does anyone have anything in particular they want to share or to add? At this point in time, I want you to take the floor. Just let me just call your names off, and if you have something to say, by all means, say it. Let me go with Janis.
To all the trans people who might be listening or who will see this later on, things have changed a lot since when I was young. You have a chance if we pull together and we stand together to fight forward. We're being attacked, but we'll be attacked from the right until they figure out that they can't beat us, and they'll find somebody else that's weaker that they can go attack. So to any trans people who might be watching this and thinking about Trans Day of Remembrance or trying to remember the people who were killed, pay memorial to them by living your life and continuing to live. You can live past 35. You can live past 40. There's no expiration date stamped on somebody's foot. People get older if they live to be older. So push on living to be older. That's what I'd say to you. I'm in my 60s. I'm a native, and I've gotten past the age when they say I should have died. you can make it, and you can push forward from here and try to make a good life with things. So, Jennifer?
Thank you. Jay-Z?
Um, yeah, I do. I think around this time we're reminded of all the losses, but I also do want to agree with Janis, is that despite how much of hate is put out there, um, we can make it through. And I also want to say, if anybody is feeling at some point desperate, or it just feels like it's too much, that it's important to reach out. It's important to reach out to friends, or to those of us who have been around a minute and have seen this, ups and downs of the world. And you're not alone. You are not. You're not alone. We are here for you, and reach out, and just don't give up. So that's my message.
Jamil?
I want to start by saying that I am a POC trans man. I have my dad is Afro-Cuban, and his ancestors are from Africa, and my grandma was brought as a slave to Cuba, so he speaks French and Spanish. My mom is Puerto Rican. Hispanic people has a history of knowing that they don't accept their trans child. It is a thing in the Hispanic community. They do not accept us. I don't have that family support. The only one that accepts me in my family is my sister. That being said, I had to create my own family, my own circle, my own everything. I say, if you just starting your transition, you don't have your family support, be yourself. If your family don't support you, create your own family. But oh, never lose your identity and never compare your transition to anybody else. And if you feel that you're in a spot where you need help, or you need some kind of support, reach out to somebody. I mean, there's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. There's all kind of platform where there's support that you can reach out to. Jennifer?
Thank you. I want to say this. One of the things that also fuels me is there's a bunch of babies that's coming up. When I say babies, I'm talking about I've met some amazing young folk, and eventually I'm gonna be old and need a wheelchair and stuff like that. And these young folk are gonna be our leaders, our protectors, our Congress people, our male people. They're gonna become the doctors and nurses, right? And some of them are hungry to know self, and it sucks that even in 2022, there's still this many obstacles that tells them you can't be you, whatever you is. Um, I want them to know, and even for the older people, because there are still people that's defining themselves to this very day. There is no certain time frame when you have to define yourself. If you find it late in life, well, when you're older, I don't want to say late in life. When you're older, if you start to discover the true you, that's fine. You better pull a Jill Scott and live your life like it's golden. You get only one life. You have to be true and happy with self before you can make anyone else happy. You can do so much for the world, but it means nothing if you don't do for yourself. And that starts with loving self. And part of loving self is being self. I would go through hell and high water all over again. It always landed me up being who I am. I'll forego relationships and everything else. I just don't ever want to lose me. I lost me so many times because no matter what I wanted to do, I knew who I wanted to be for self, but I wanted to please so many others. So much so that I lost me. I lost me so much that I didn't even want to damn it live because it seemed like I was getting nowhere with fulfilling my desires to be me. But after many suicide battles, I understand now that I can't keep putting everything else and everyone else before me putting self first. You know, I still do. At least I got the understanding of self, and I can look in the mirror now and be happy seeing me without makeup. To be happy, that's why I'm here with no makeup on. To see me in my skin tone, as melanated as it is, I love it. It's just a journey. And parents, I can't tell you how to raise your child. What I can tell you and ask of you is to please love your babies. Love your babies as much as you can. And family, friends, pronouns, respect each other. But everyone, period, damn it, respect each other, respect each other's boundaries, respect each other's space. And cheaters, go in the corner and die. I'm playing. This next part is going to be the reading of the names at this current time. There's 33 trans folk who have been murdered by senseless violence. And we're going to start by saying their names. And I want to give a trigger warning. This is typically the sad part, and I know that it has to be done. They deserve this. They deserve to be living. We may not get the names completely correct. So for family and friends of those who are no longer with us, please understand nothing is intentional, and we're trying our best that we can. We love you all. And with that being said, take it away, Jamil.
I'm gonna try my best to pronounce the name. If I mess up the name, I am so sorry. Tiffany Banks, Samaj, AC, Maya, D. Ricks, Maggie, and Aaron.
Candy Reed, aka Camilla Mary Swan, aka Dee Dee, Hayden Davis, Maricela Castro, Cherry Bush, Keshia Chanel Getter, Martasia Richmond, Kitty Monroe, Charmaine Giselle Marie, Brazil Johnson, Sasha Mason.
Chandalika Y. Ella Dior Hemingway. Nedra Sequence Morris. Ray Muscat. Fern Feather. Ariana Mitchell. Mia Love Parker. Kenyatta Keisha Webster. Catherine Katie Newhouse.
Tatiana Labelle, Paloma Vasquez, Matthew Angelo Spampidolo, Naomi Skinner, Cypress Cypress Ramos, Deval Princess, and Maria Lajay. Please forgive us if we butchered any names. It was never intentionally. With that being said, I'm bringing this to the end of our event. I thank you guys for being here. I want to thank CLAGS as well as RPC for allowing me, Jennifer Love, your hostess with the mostest, to put on this event. I'm going to I want JC to talk about CLAGS and where people can find CLAGS and what CLAGS offers. Take it away.
Thank you. So CLAGS is a center for LGBTQ study. It's a part of CUNY. And if you go to our website, which I think somebody's going to drop in chats, clags.org is our website. You can go there, find out about many more events as our own, and then also events around the CUNY. This event was sponsored by LGBT Consortium, which is CUNY-wide program, and they have multiple events happening this week that are dealing with Trans Day of Remembrance. So, check us out, see more of what CLAGS does, and participate, and then, send us an email if you have a question. But I hope to see everybody at some other future events. Thank you. Oh, and we're the oldest center, the oldest academic center that is specifically focusing on LGBTQ stuff in this country. Been around since late 80s, early 90s. So,
thank you. Janis, would you care to talk about RPC?
Sure. RPC is the Reclaim Pride Coalition. It's a coalition of organizations that came together to put on something called the Queer March. We're always looking for people to volunteer and help us. You can go to the website reclaimpridenewyorkcity.org and sign up to help, or you can go to the website and donate to the organization. I also work for another organization called Indigenous Peoples Day Philadelphia. You can donate to them as well. You can look them up on the internet. And I also help to plan the Philadelphia Trans March, which also can use donations and help if you live in Philadelphia. One thing I want to bring up is something called the Trans Survey. It's getting close to being over. The window for actually submitting the Trans Survey. You can search on the internet for it. You can search on the website. You can check our social media to get the address as to where it is. The Trans Survey is incredibly important. It gives us the best understanding of the lives of trans people around the United States. Last time it was done was in 2015. We're trying to get more people of color, Native American, Black, Asian people to fill it out. This includes non-binary people. It includes intersex people who can fill it out. Please, it takes a while to do. It takes an hour and a half to do. But it's worth it because that gives us an understanding of where the community is and where it's going. The last survey has been used incredibly valuable when we were having discussions about policies and whole sorts of things. Take the new survey so that we have accurate information on the things going forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jamil, do you want to plug Phoenix one more again?
Yes. Phoenix Transition is program.com. Like I mentioned earlier, is the organization I founded back in 2020. And I also work for an organization called Invisible Man. and that's invisibleteamman.org or .com. Either one will take you to the website. Invisible Man is a platform for trans masculine people for our visibility. We have a different groups and chats where we connect together and support each other and what we're looking for, because a lot of the resources for trans men are not really out there like that. So we try to connect with each other. So and we share our stories on the website as well. So if y'all want to know more about different trans men stories and stuff, y'all can check out the website as well to read about different trans men.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, the Gen Love Project provides home packages to recently released and soon to be released LGBTQ plus people along the East Coast. But in all honesty, I provide along anywhere in the country as long as someone reaches out to me with the appropriate information. With that being said, and you can always reach out to the Gen Love Project at genloveproject.org. That's GenLoveProject.org. And remember, I am grassroots, I am small, and every donation counts. Also, you can reach out to Black and Pink NYC to sign up for a pen pal to help speak to some of our incarcerated loved ones on the inside and let them know that they are valued and that they are human. In that situation is very dehumanizing, and that's a way to be community and let them truly feel like they have a start of humanization and possibly coming home and becoming productive members of so-called society. With that being said, once again, thank you guys all for being here live. And for those of you guys who are going to watch it later on, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you for myself and for my panelists. Thank you to CLAGS and thank you to RPC for allowing me to have this moment. I thank you once again. My name is Jennifer Love Williams.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks,
Thank
Jennifer.
you guys.